Hello, this is Goku for some one, and I'm back this time to do a review. Now, this is a mostly spoiler-free review of the movie John Carter, which should have been called John Carter of Mars. If you have yet to see the movie, there will be minor spoilers in here, so you might want to avoid it. But if you haven't seen this movie, it came out 2 years ago. It is the second year anniversary of this movie's release, and I did see it in theaters, so I am not to blame for this movie if it never gets a sequel, which it probably won't, unfortunately, and it should. I'm going to be mostly positive, but if you haven't seen this movie, then just watch this review, get a better sense of what this movie is like, so you'll know if you want to see it or not. That's my opinion. So let me get into it. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the book. Yet again, I'm going to do as much spoiler-free stuff as I can, but also entice you to go see the movie if you've yet to see it. So this movie came out, and this is the third time I've seen this movie, I think. I might have seen it 4 times, but I know the first time I saw it, I loved the movie. The second time I saw it, I was kind of disappointed with the movie. And this time around, I'm more so on the very much enjoyed it, thought it was a really good movie, and liked it much more than I did the second time. And I think I figured out why. There are a lot of differences from this movie to the book. And the biggest differences I noticed is the book goes into a lot more detail and has a lot more of the culture of the Tharks, one of the Green Martians. They're gigantic, they have 4 arms, they're really cool, and their imagery in this movie was really, really interesting. And that was my biggest thing, but I think one of the more brilliant ideas that they've added into this movie that was not in the first book was adding the Thorns. Not the Tharks, the Thorns. The Thorns are a group of human-looking creatures that are basically are thought to be gods. And you find out what they really are in the second book, but in the first book they're not even mentioned, they're not talked about, they're not there. And because this was meant to be a trilogy, they were set up in this film as an entity. They exist. These are a group, these are who they are, these are who they work for, and they're in part of their order was set up. So in the sequel, once you get into them, then they can flesh them out and explain who they really are and actually go into the detail, because the second book really goes into detail on that kind of stuff. Now, I've only read the second book in comic book form, but I do actually recommend, if you are interested in this and you want to actually get the 3-arc structure that this film was supposed to be, I do recommend you go read the Dynamite comic. So I do like that aspect of the movie. Now, the biggest thing I think from the movie to the book change that I think was actually brilliant and a really good thing, I thought it was brilliant that they did, was the dimension of the characters. In the book, Dejah Thoris, the main female character, is a damsel in distress. In every story, she gets kidnapped and John Carter has to save her. In this movie, they changed that. She is a capable person. She's a scientist. She's got her own will and desire. She wants to do something. And she's also a capable fighter to a certain degree. John Carter is a better fighter, but he also has superpowers. Now, this comes into my biggest problem with the movie. The unbalancing of his powers. In some scenes, he can literally throw a Thark across the room and kill him. And in other scenes, he's having trouble dealing with red Martians. Red Martians. They're humanoids. They look like humans. He should be able to easily handle them. So that's my biggest problem with that. Is that there's an unbalancing issue there a little bit that I think they should have gotten a little bit better. Make her heroic, but also don't make Dejah Thoris as strong as John Carter. She should be. He is literally got superpowers for this world. Not technically. His bone structure is a little bit different. But overall, this was a well-put-together movie. It looks gorgeous. The sound is good. The CG in this movie is just groundbreakingly brilliant. And another thing is this has some of the problem, or this has the same syndrome that the Green Lantern movie, in my opinion, had, where the elements that need to be right for a sequel are there, they're perfect, they're right, they're set up exactly the way you want, but the things that don't necessarily need to be there are not as important to a sequel, but are important to this story, are a little messed up in my opinion. So that's a little bit more understanding because of that, because if they were to do a sequel, they could have fixed those things in the sequel. This movie is wide scale. I think that because it's supposed to be on Mars, it looks too much Earth-like. But when you see the kingdoms and you see like the structure and the architecture, I think it looks very alien to a degree. It looks very fantasy-ish. And this is a fantasy sci-fi movie, and I think they mesh those elements together brilliantly. I think this movie is if you like these types of movies, if you want a good fantasy sci-fi movie that's a good 2.5 hours long and you want to be enjoyed, this is the movie for you. This is a very good ride, a very fun, well put together movie. The acting is solid across the board. So yes, I do highly recommend this movie. Go watch it if you haven't seen this. This was Goku 471. Please leave a comment below. Tell me what you think, and I'll see you next time. YouTube.